Hello and welcome. This is the Hustle Over Everything podcast, a show where we unite hustlers together, sharing stories, tips, and celebrating the journey to success. I'm your host, Alexander.
And I'm your main man, Owen Osinde.
Every day is special here. We're here in the Hustler's Den. Today, we have Marsha Druker. Marsha is the founder of Fuckup Nights Toronto. She's the marketer turned community leader with the Fuckup Nights platform in Toronto, where they destigmatize mistakes and provide a platform for entrepreneurs to learn and grow. So today we have her on the podcast to share her journey of starting Fuckup Nights in Toronto, her entrepreneurship journey, and building community. Owen, what do you think of the pod?
Man, Al, this is such a great pod, and it's something that I wanted to talk about for a long time. You know, us as entrepreneurs, you know, we really glorify the success of everything that we do, but we're very ashamed to talk about the things we mess up on. Mm-hmm. So having Marsha on the podcast was actually such a great way to really educate our audience that it's okay to fuck up. You know, it's okay to mess up and to actually share those vulnerabilities because everybody's going through it. So I think she really spoke well about how she started the platform and how a lot of entrepreneurs are benefiting from it. But yeah, man, it was a great podcast. It was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Rejuvenating to talk about the both sides of being an entrepreneur, you know? So that's how I felt about it. What about you?
Man, I liked it. There were some parts where I disagreed a little bit, to be honest, when she said that having community is like 2 to 3 people, you know, I was like, I needed time to think over it. I also would have like disagreed right in the moment, you know, but I definitely gave her a bit of pushback with her saying that Instagram isn't a community, because then she actually eventually explained it that just putting out content is a community. It's the give and take of communicating back and forth that makes sense. I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But yeah, I think overall it was a good pod. We learned about tactics to generate an audience. That tactic she used of going in front of the audience, that was a smart one. Guys, you definitely pay attention to that during the podcast. Make sure. Also, how she got PR was a really good strategy as well.
Yeah.
So I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, I thought there was some good parts of it.
Yeah, man. Like I felt like I always heard about these fuck up nights that are going on, and I thought like they're very refreshing to be at. You know, like I've always wanted to go on. I haven't had the opportunity to go on, and like I think I'd like to be a part of fuck up nights and talk about the fuck ups I've made over the past 7 years. Let's say, you know, I've been in the game, bro. You know, I've been in fashion, I've been in tech, and now I'm in the media business. And during that path, there's been a lot of fuck ups that sometimes, you know, when you look back and you reflect on something, you feel like this embarrassing feeling. You're like, damn, like, what the hell did I do that? You know, like, why, like, what was I thinking? That's the first thing that comes in my mind. Like, what was I thinking? And I mean, like, it also, you know, makes you wonder, like, why do you think we are so afraid to admit our faults towards other people?
Judgment.
Yeah.
You know? Judgment, I think is the biggest thing. 2 things, judgment and non-acceptance, you know. Not being accepted is, actually, no, I'll say like this, acceptance is a hell of a drug, you know. No matter what, all the things we do is rooted in acceptance, whether it be from our parents, from our peers, from people we want respect from, you know. So acceptance is a hell of a drug. So not being able to get acceptance from somebody can cause us to do all types of things, you know. So we stay in our social, economical status, you know, frameworks or whatever the word is.
It's like social capital.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you want to always have that in your back pocket. So that's why a lot of people walk around with LinkedIn profiles, man, you know, or walk around as a LinkedIn profile more so. I'm curious, man, what was one fuck up that sticks out to you in your mind?
What's one fuck up that sticks up to me in my mind, man?
Yeah, I can actually go first, and then you can.
Let me think about it as you talk.
All right. So I got one on deck, man. I was working for a boutique as an intern. I think I was like nine. No, I think I was in my 20s, early 20s at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some samples that had came in to be shot. You know, I was doing the digital marketing for them, and I shot the samples, and it went really well. I posted a photo on their gram, and it had gotten the best numbers to date. You know,
It's like
and
in the
they sold a
thousands.
whole bunch. Yeah, in the thousands, in the thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, "What the hell? What did he do? Like, is this some kind of whiz kid? Like, ooh, I can't wait." You know.
Mm-hmm.
Time goes on, and I send back the samples. It goes fine. So we do it again, and we shoot. The shoot goes pretty well, decently, and I file the samples off, send them over. And the samples, the way it worked is that some samples went to one specific distribution center,
Mm-hmm.
another sample went to other distribution centers, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or buying centers or warehouses, wherever they
Yeah.
got them from. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I write the wrong sample tags, the wrong information on the samples. You know, because I was like so amped to like, finish a shoot and get to editing and get to like
Yeah.
work. I was too amped. I write the wrong description on it, so it goes to like some other spot, and I didn't even know. We had to find out through my manager at the time, and she was not having it. You know, it was a simple task that had a lot of repercussion for fucking up. You know, so that was a big fuck up on my end. And from that point on, it was just downhill. You know, I started on a high note. The worst experience to have at a job is to start on a high note and go down. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? The best is to like start low and go high,
You
but like
elevate.
then you
Yeah.
feel like you're elevating. But to start high and go low, oh my gosh, man, that's
Yeah.
the worst. You know, you have everybody there loving you. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? And everyone looking at, man, we did a good job hiring this kid. Then
Yeah.
they're like, oh, nah, it's okay. He'll be all right. Then,
You know the thing is, they expect you to get better with time, right? But if
yeah,
you come out the
exactly.
gates like an all-star, they're like, raw,
Mhm.
like, you know, you've set the precedence right there. Like, I am actually gonna keep getting better and better. If he can do this out the gate, see what he can do. Let's wait and see what he can do in the next 3, 4, 5 months, right? So you kind of set the expectations, and you know, think expectations is what kills everybody. You know, I set expectations from you and you don't meet them, I'm sad, I'm upset. So now when you put that on them, they're like, okay, we expect this from you, and you're just setting them up for disappointment, which sucks.
Most definitely.
Yeah,
Most
man.
definitely. So let's get into the business tip of the week.
Oh, bro, I didn't say mine.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your fuck up? Let's get into that.
Bro, man, I remember. So my first business coming out of actually my first business ever, recruits clothing, recruits sportswear. So I started this brand out of high school, and I came to Ryerson with this brand. That's the reason I came to Ryerson, actually, is because I had this brand in like Ryerson's downtown. I was like, I can make a lot of connections with a lot of people to build this brand up. I'm downtown Toronto. I didn't want to go to like Laurier or Guelph, Western, whatever those schools are in like the kind of like in the southwest of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember I started this collection, and it was a crew neck, a hoodie, and a beanie. It was like ready for fall. So for the crew neck, I decided to go the China route. So me being the very positive, optimistic person that, you know, I was like, oh, everything's going to go well. I ordered, I think, 1,000 sweaters at the time, right? Thinking I could sell these sweaters. So I had saved up all my money, all the profit I had made over the summer, because, you know, I was selling to my warm market, like all my friends, my mom, my cousins, everybody who knows me. Oh, Owen's starting a brand, I'm going to go support him. So I'm like, boom, I'm on Ryerson, I'm in res, right? So I'm thinking like, I'm in res, everybody's going to buy these sweaters. Everybody's going to do whatever. And at that time, the Square card reader had just come out. So I got the Square app, and I'm like, you know what? Everybody rates my stuff. Everybody loves the shirt. They're like, yo, whenever you come out with some fresh stuff, I'm going to buy it. So I'm kind of going what people are telling me. So I use Alibaba I get the sweaters made. They come within a month and a half, ready for the drop date. My friends and I think IK actually came with me, and we go to the FedEx because they can't deliver at our residence because I'm in Pittman Hall, right? So they can't deliver our residence. So we have to take a taxi all the way to the FedEx port to pick up all these sweaters. We pick them, then I have to pay like a duty on these boxes. It was about like close to $300, $200 to $300, right? So, bro, I overestimated how much we were gonna sell, man. Like we overestimated. I think we only sold 300, 400 over res, and then I gave some away for free to Femi Lawson. So Femi, I actually contacted him. I was like, "Yo, bro, like, come on the pod. Not come on the pod. I know you do YouTube. Let me give you some shit to promote on the video." He's like, "I bet." It was such a cold DM I sent on Twitter, but he was like gladly accepting. He's like, "Yo, like, you're coming up. I'm down to do it." And it's free sweaters. So I gave him a lot of sweaters to give to people because he had a lot of influence. I'm like, you know what? Like, he's a guy who I can count on. So I'm thinking this influence stuff, Femi is going to boost my sales. Did nothing. Not because of Femi's fault, but like, it's just the way it is, right? So, man, that was the biggest fuck up ever just because I spent so much money getting those sweaters made and I couldn't sell them. And it was just such a bad case of judgment. And it's funny how things work out. So I ended up donating all those sweaters to the Goodwill and whatever, just because everybody in Toronto had the sweater that new recruits was going to buy. I'm not selling these online. It's hard. So, I mean, you know what? Let me do a good cause. At least these sweaters will go to somebody who needs them. Valley Village, if you're going to buy them, boom. So I'm walking to Ted Rogers. One day, I think I had a class in Ted Rogers. At least this story has a happy ending instead of me just killing all my money. Damn, bro. Can't believe you donated like that, like close to 500 sweaters, man. That's insane. So I'm walking and I come out of TRS 100. You know that big lecture hall on the first floor?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. And this one chick comes out rocking a recruit sweater. So I'm like, yo, I do not know that girl. I've never sold her a sweater. I've never met her before. How the hell did she get a recruit sweater? So I was walking there close to the microwave and she was heating up her food. So I'm like, I have to talk to her and actually like let her know. So I'm like, hey, like, how did you get that sweater? He's like, oh, this one's just like, oh, like, I think I bought it at like some store or whatever. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah, like, do you like it? I'm like, yeah, I think it's dope. It's really cozy and comfortable. Like, she's really talking about it. Her name is Anna, and her and I are friends now. And she's just like, I'm like, yo, I made that sweater. She's like, what? You did? She's like, yeah. I'm like, that's my brand. I started when I first came to Rice. It's like, no way. Wow. Like, I love this sweater. It's one of my favorites. So we end up bonding and whatever, chatting it up and becoming friends. And I see her around the building a lot more. But yeah, bro, to all entrepreneurs, man, if you're starting a fashion brand, never really order a lot of pieces, man. Really buy what you can sell. So that was my fuck up that I had early on in my career, just buying too much inventory, which costed me. And you know what that thing is, bro? That was the demise of the brand at the time. It was the demise of the brand because after that, I couldn't really afford to buy more inventory. And that's when I switched to tech because tech is more scalable. So I learned early on that fashion isn't like a scalable business. It's like, and that's when the tech thing was happening. IG comes out, gets sold to Facebook over 500 days and whatever. So I shifted to tech to start Sneaker Deck. But that was the reason, like, that one mistake really just derailed me and derailed the whole business. And I had to pivot to start something else, which was a blessing in disguise. But I could have not have made that mistake. And things could have been different, man.
Jeez, man. That's a big fuck up.
Yeah.
It happens, though, man. It happens. Just like Mr. Spencer said, you know, like, fuck ups happen. Sometimes you overestimate. And you get a big shipment and you got to go on sale. You got to figure shit out, man.
Oh, absolutely, man.
It's crazy.
It's like
500, almost 500 sweaters, man.
500 sweaters, bro.
Yeah.
You know, you also what hurts a lot more
is
my mom lent me money to start that business. because I was so passionate about it. And I think she borrowed me, she lent me like $800 at the time, which to me was a lot of money coming in grade 12, but she had so much faith in me. And I don't know, man. It just crushes me that like I killed all that money and all the money I made. But yo, man, in business, you only have to be right once, right?
That's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah. Man.
Damn. That's a big one. That's a good one, man. That's a good fuck up. Oof. Did you learn anything from that?
Yes, man. You know, just do your due diligence, bro. Like, do your due diligence. Like, and at the time, bro, I was such a young entrepreneur, man. I was so naive. I didn't know anything I knew business, but I didn't know anything at all. I started learning more about budgeting, finance, planning, different markets. You know, I thought like people, my warm market, like my mom, my sisters, all those type of people who fall in my circle, I can be able to like convince people in the outside to buy stuff, but it's a totally different ball game, which I was not ready for. I was so naive, bro, that I thought like putting up a great website and whatever is going to attract customers, but there's so much to it, which I didn't know at the time. And yeah, man, it's just a lot of inexperience. I think that's what it is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you. Oof, that's a big one. Yeah, audience members, man. What do you think of that one?
You know?
That's tough, bro. All right, man. Let's get into the business tip of the week.
Let's get into the business tip, bro. Let's do it.
All right. So for this one, I actually want to keep it a little bit more simple, less tactical. Mm-hmm. This one is actually on mindset. And speaking of fuck ups, I want to talk about the mindset behind fuck ups. You know, a lot of times fuck ups happen, and it's important to know and to notice that you are not your fuck ups and you are not your business.
Mm-hmm.
You know. A lot of times it's going to happen, but having the non-romantic side of it on being a practical mind, you have to realize that I'm not my fuck up. This happens. It sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what are the solutions? You know, and it's very important not to personalize your losses, or else you can get wiped right the fuck out. You know, swept into the water. With the fuck up that happens, you know. Mm-hmm. It's better to ground yourself, sit in it, realize it sucks, and keep moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Just because there's going to be losses, there's going to be wins, there's going to be people who betray you, but it's important not to take it personal, you know. So the people who are going to quit on you,
mm-hmm.
people who are just
trust,
without a doubt, you know. And it's very important not to take it personal. So that's my business tip of the week. You know, keep a level head. Don't take it personal, mm-hmm. and don't. I'm missing a word. Internalize is the word. Do not internalize your business or the fuck ups that come with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the business tip of the week, guys.
That's the business tip of the week, man.
Yes.
So now we move on to our next segment, which is Hustle Nation.
Mm-hmm.
So Hustle Nation, listen up. It's Mr. Hustle Muscle over here, Owen Osende. And today's Hustle Nation message is fulfilling your own needs, right? One of the biggest things that I got away from Marsha's podcast is filling in the gaps with the things that you see missing and actually doing something about it. So you learn from this story how Marsha came back from the city. She did not see this particular event and wanted to do something about it. So she made it happen. A lot of the times, we see things that are missing in the market, are missing in society. And, you know, we want to do something. We want to partake in it, but no one is doing something about it. See those moments as an opportunity to take action and to be the change agent to make it happen. All you just got to do is just get the ball rolling and just take that chance to make it happen. I guarantee you, when you see something is missing, if it's a product or service or an event or a group or a particular community, take the initiative to start making it happen. You don't have to have a big thing from the get-go, but all you just need to do is get started, and you need one person who thinks the same as you to join you on that journey. And over time, you're going to attract like-minded people. So going into this week, fulfill your own needs. If it's a little community on Instagram, or if it's a meetup, meetup group that you see that's missing, start it. There's a bunch of people who also feel the same way, but they might not have the courage to do so. But I challenge you, if you feel like that, take that first step and make it happen, because you can change a lot of lives, like the way Marsha has with her event, which you're going to hear in this episode. So enjoy this episode and take a chance at what you believe in. And that's a Hustle Nation message of the week.
Housekeeping announcements. Let's get into them. To support the podcast, here are your options. For free, if you're on Apple, make sure you rate and review the podcast. It makes a huge difference. If you're on Spotify, follow us and hit download. If you're on Google Play, hit subscribe and auto download so you'll be notified and have a fresh pod ready to go. On Twitter, make sure to follow us at 247 Hustlers. On Instagram, make sure to follow us at 247 Hustler. On Facebook, we're Hustle Over Everything. Also, on our website, make sure to check out our email newsletter. It's called the 247 Hustle, which covers news in business, music, and culture, all through the lens of entrepreneurship. Hit the link below to support us. Our Proud to Pay program is in the podcast description below. We appreciate any support. Now let's get back into the show.
So Marsha, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. I'm super excited to chat with you guys today.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we know the type of platform you're creating for the city, and bringing all entrepreneurs together, and just being vulnerable and sharing their stories together, so we can learn from each other, and making failure not such a bad thing, because failure is one step closer towards success.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Let's jump right into it. I would love to know about your story in Tel Aviv. Could you break down what you were doing over there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. So I feel like I went through maybe what some people would call a quarter life crisis. So when I was 25, I was working in Toronto, really safe corporate job, working in PR and marketing. And I was at that company for about 3 years. I really loved it. I was doing great work. I had gotten promoted. I had an awesome team. But I felt like I was kind of stagnating. Just in general, I felt like I wanted to do something completely different. I was becoming really passionate about tech and startups, and I just wanted to experience something totally different. So I came across this program in Israel called Career Israel, where you're able to match with a company in whatever industry you're interested in and have an experience working, living abroad, and traveling through the country. And it was exactly what I wanted to do. And a regret that I kind of had in university was not going on exchange. A lot of my good friends had gone, and it was really the time of their life, and they felt like they learned so much in that experience. Mm-hmm. So I found something that kind of helped me meet a lot of my goals, to move my career forward in a new direction, to experience living in a new place, to experience a different culture, and to just absolutely step out of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So I went for it. People thought I was absolutely crazy to leave such a safe and awesome job behind at home, but I just thought that I would take a risk and try something totally different and step out of my comfort zone. So that was sort of the reasoning for going. And while I was there, I was working for a startup. I was employee number 6, which was a huge change from, working in a large corporate environment. Mm-hmm. But it was the coolest thing ever. I absolutely loved it. I got to really wear a lot of different hats. I was specialized in content marketing and growth marketing. But since the company was so small, I really got to understand product and quality testing, and really working with all sides of the company and working really closely with the founders of the company as well, which was a super cool experience. And while I was in Tel Aviv, I found myself going out to a lot of different events and meetups, and became parts of different communities there. And that was sort of my foray into this whole world.
Which startup was that?
So the startup was called VeedMe. It was in the video marketing space. They created a marketplace for videographers to meet marketers and to have sort of a portfolio of priced examples, and then to be able to kind of match on there. And then if they were to move forward with a project, to kind of do everything within that platform, price it out, all the communication, and then the payment would happen through there. Yeah. And actually later when I got back to Toronto, I think about a year later or so, the company was actually acquired by Fiverr. So now it's part of Fiverr in their pro division.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
It's really cool.
We both have experience in the startup space. You know, for me, I was at a company that did an AI for Facebook ads. And it was such an experience. You really got to see everything from the CEOs to the developers to the like high-end or I guess high-level marketers, and really just like experience everyone working together in such like a small space. You know,
just you learn so much more. I think in that kind of environment.
Most definitely. You wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, exactly.
All the time. Most definitely. You know,
just you learn so much more. I think in that kind of environment.
Most definitely. You wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, exactly.
All the time. Most definitely. So when did you come back to Toronto?
So I came back. So I was there in total for about a year. I came back right at the end of 2016, like late fall of 2016.
How is it like experiencing like Israeli culture and being in Tel Aviv? Like, how's it like being there? How's the city like? Because we hear like the startup scene is booming in Tel Aviv, and no one really talks about it unless people have been there and they come back and they tell us how amazing Tel Aviv is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are really surprised to hear of, you know, like some really well-known companies that are based there or that started in Israel. Yeah. Tel Aviv and, you know, Israel in general is really known as Startup Nation. It's a place that's super innovative and moves really fast, and people work hard, but they play really hard too. It's like right behind or right on par with Silicon Valley in terms of like number of startups per capita.
Oh, wow.
There's some huge companies that have come out of there, like Wix is headquartered in Tel Aviv. They have like a huge set of offices all across the port, really beautiful. Waze was started there, acquired by Google. Later on, Fiverr is headquartered there.
And I mentioned that too.
Yeah, and then Monday.com is another really cool one, I think, which a lot of people are surprised at. That's a company that's really booming now. But those are just, you know, those are a few that jump to mind. There's so many others. And it's a really incredible place if you want to work in tech and really experience an ecosystem like that. I would say Toronto is really far behind. I know we're kind of booming too, and it's an exciting place to be, but you can't really even compare the two.
Yeah, I actually had an experience with a startup in Tel Aviv, and we had to like really be smart with our coordination when it came to like meetings, just because the time is backwards over there.
The time is different. The work week is different too. So it goes from Sunday to Thursday because Shabbat is the Friday, Saturday. So that's the weekend. So that's different as well. But I would say the work culture, it's really incredible. Like I said, like people really hustle and they work hard, but it's an amazing city to live in. It's very international. It's very secular. It, you know, like people for the most part speak English really well. Like it was, you know, language was not really a barrier for me there. And it's a cool city to live in. Like the weather is absolutely beautiful. You're like walking distance to the beach, incredible nightlife scene, incredible restaurants, and just the most amazing people. So I had a blast there. It was the time of my life for sure.
Would you go back?
Yeah, like any chance I get. I've been back once so far, just on vacation, but you never know. I could see myself kind of living there or doing something longer there again.
For sure. So tell us about that first, fuck up night that you experienced that made you like, you know, what was that like when you first took that in for you?
Yeah, so I went to my first fuck-up night when I was living in Tel Aviv. I was going out to a lot of different events. I was really looking to kind of get immersed into the ecosystem and just meet new people and really experience some of the events that the locals go to. So I was going out to a lot of different events. Same thing in Toronto. I was pretty active in terms of going out to networking events and different industry events. And after a while, as I'm sure you guys probably agree, like they all kind of started to feel the same in some ways. Like whatever the topic was people talking about how successful they are and really like sharing the highlight reel or you know, they like did their project or grew their company or whatever. So like I would still enjoy them, but it just, you know, it started feeling almost repetitive. And Fuck Up Nights just kind of popped up on my Facebook. Name definitely caught my eye. And then I read into it and I was like, this is really cool. Like, this is different. I'll check it out. I had no expectations. It's like, this could suck. Like, it really depends on how it's executed. And I went to it and I was really blown away. I think that was the first time that I saw something. Like, I didn't know the word community. I didn't even know what that was, but it just like, it didn't feel like a networking event to me. It felt like people were a lot more genuine. And especially after having heard the stories, like super successful people sharing their biggest fuck ups and the darkest parts of their journeys. I think it just brings people's guards down. So it didn't feel like a transactional sort of networking thing. It felt like, people were really just being like really authentic and just sharing their true stories and asking really good questions. So I absolutely loved it, and it was just so refreshing in so many different ways, like in terms of the content and then the people that were there and the community that was there.
Did you share any stories yourself? Like, was there one where like the audience can come in and share their stories, or was it like an open thing for audience to hop in?
There was an opportunity for Q&A, and some people kind of jumped in and kind of shared a little bit of their own experience. It was really more during the networking, and that was actually something that I've integrated over time into our events in Toronto, really giving people an opportunity to share their stories at our events, and then in terms of our social media and virtual things that we do as well.
Solid.
Curious, was there any fuck up that stuck out to you that inspired you specifically, or is the top of your mind?
You know what? I get this question a lot. People ask me like, what's your biggest fuck up, or what was the fuck up that you had that kind of inspired you to start it?
Not necessarily yours, one that you heard that was inspiring for you.
Oh, I see. Okay, so at that event, the one that I went to in Tel Aviv, I remember one of the speakers, he had a very successful career. He worked in LinkedIn, and I think he worked in LinkedIn Israel, and he was in charge of kind of building it out in parts of Europe as well. And was doing a ton of traveling and had this great like online presence. You would never think that a person like that has ever fucked up, because everything just looked so polished. And the way that he told his story, he just like totally took the filters off. And he was like, listen, like I almost failed out of high school. I think he did fail out of university, and he really had to hustle to even get that sort of role. And he's been fired a few times and past roles. And like, you would never think looking at somebody's like that LinkedIn or their social profiles. So I think just like a story like that, it just opened my eyes that the more successful somebody looks, a lot of the time, the more risks they kind of had to take, and, the struggles they had to overcome to actually get there.
Yeah, that's one thing I always realize as well, too. Like, there's a lot of successful people, and this is what actually led us to starting Hustle Over Everything. It's like, I always felt when I've been reading about entrepreneurship ever since high school and wanting to jump into it, I only saw success. And I feel like in our generation, especially as like young people, we feel as if being an entrepreneur, it's all about showing success and showing that you've made it. And we look at people that we read about who get profiled, and all they say, yeah, we did this and we did that. So it makes you feel as if like you can't really share your failures and your come up. It's like every time, even I caught myself sometimes when I started my first business, someone asked me, like, how's it was like a sportswear line I started back in high school. And they'll be asking me, like, hey, how's it going? It's like, man, business is booming. Like, but like literally like I'm struggling to get my merchandise in time. My screen printer is not working. Like all these things that were like just this burning in the background, but I'll just front like as if everything is working. And that's like the culture that's come out of being an entrepreneur. It's like looking successful and not really sharing.
That's the thing. Like, it's like you want people to have confidence in you, like your customers, people that you work with, your team, all of that. But I think what people don't realize is that, you can still be a human and you could still be vulnerable. And I feel like that's going to make people respect you even more, really showing, yes, like there are struggles and there are fuck ups, but here's what we learned from them and here's how we're moving forward. I think that's so much more valuable than just trying to kind of put on a brave face and, just like hustle through and not really show the true side of what's happening, or just not even like reaching out for help and engaging others in your struggle.
Most definitely. It's the, like you said, the putting on the brave face and not trying to look like you have any chinks in your armor at all, and that kind of shows in hustle culture as well. Oh, how many hours did you sleep tonight? Oh, I slept 2 hours. I was
2 hours, man.
hustling all night.
Grinding all night, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just not humanly possible to sustain, things like that are always, I guess, looked upon as a successful method to work, when in real life it's nowhere close to what anybody really does.
No, like you don't want to be hustling just for the sake of hustling. You have to really hustle smart. And I think there's seasons in everybody's life, and especially as an entrepreneur, of course you have to hustle and you have to be kind of willing to work when other people aren't. But I think there's seasons where you really have to give yourself a chance to unwind and, have a lot more balance in your life, because it's not sustainable to just always be hustling.
Most definitely.
Absolutely.
So you go to this the hustle event, this Fuckup Night event, and you come back. How fast do you get started on the event series?
It was a few months. So I went to the event, I believe it was like end of July or early August. And then I came back to Toronto in the late fall. And those first few months were kind of a weird time in my life, where I guess it's a big transition, like going from, living in a totally different place, totally different country, being with a different group of friends, being immersed in a new culture, to then just come back sort of to your old life and, move back in. Like I moved back in with my parents, and I was really just like searching for my next step, figuring out what my next role was going to be, what I wanted to do. And because it was kind of close to the holidays, it was tough. Like I was pretty picky with what I was looking for in terms of my next role. And it was just like moving really slowly. I wasn't having a lot of luck. And I just kind of started to feel like a failure myself in some ways. I started questioning, like my decision to come back, because I had really awesome opportunities in Tel Aviv and I was kind of close to staying there. And then I started questioning, should I have gone in the first place? Like all the stuff starts going through your mind when,
You've come back, you're saying, or should I have gone to Tel Aviv in the first place?
Both, like like a little bit of both. I mostly like I was, okay. So there was a lot of stuff going through my head, and it was just tough getting like readjusted again. And I've had this conversation, with other people that have had this type of experience, living abroad and then coming back to sort of your old life. And it's weird. Like it takes time to adjust. So anyways, all of this was happening. I was trying to find my next job, was trying to figure out my next step. Again, was going out to a lot of different networking events and all of that. And they started to feel the same to me. And I just remembered Fuckup Nights. It just came back to mind, and I was like, oh, like it would be so awesome to go to a Fuckup Nights event and just feel like I'm a part of that type of community where there's other people who are talking about failure, who are maybe looking for their next step, not sure if they belong. So I started looking for it. I knew that it was a global thing. I knew it was in a bunch of countries and cities. And I was really shocked to find that it wasn't in Toronto yet. It was already like Ottawa had a chapter, Vancouver had a chapter, some like random small cities across the country had it, but somehow Toronto didn't. And at that point I was like, okay, like I saw an opportunity to do it because I felt like I kind of had nothing to lose. And I felt really passionate about it. And I felt like Toronto needed it. So yeah, that's kind of when I started looking into how can I start it and how can I bring it here.
It's as if it was like meant to be for you. I mean, like you go to Tel Aviv, you get inspired, you come back to Toronto, there's no one doing it.
Yeah.
And like, it just meant like as if it was meant for you to like make it happen. And so far you've been successful at it with like the Fuckup Nights TO.
I do feel like it was kind of meant for me in a lot of ways. And it wasn't like, I kind of glazed over it. Like, it wasn't that easy to kind of like get the license and to start doing it in Toronto. The license was actually sitting with somebody else within an organization. They were going to launch it as part of their company. And it took a lot of follow-up. They were just kind of sitting on it. They weren't sure if it was going to be the right thing for their brand. So I followed up like several times. I think the whole process took over a month, like a lot of different interviews and conversations. And then finally it kind of like the timing was just right. Like that company decided it wasn't the right thing for their brand. And they had let go of it. And I was sort of the person that was like very interested in it, had the right experience to kind of like even think about launching something like this. So yeah, like the timing really worked out.
That's very interesting. You know, you rarely do you hear about event series that have licensing agreements that go behind them. What was the process of getting that license in terms of like, do you have to apply to the Fuckup Nights, I guess, head office or something like that? Is it based in Israel? as well?
No, so it's actually, so it started in Mexico City.
Oh,
That's
okay.
where the HQ is. It has a huge presence across Mexico and just across Latin America in general.
Okay.
So yeah, the HQ sits in Mexico City. And it's more popular than you would think. Like some other events, like Creative Mornings is another very popular event series that has a global footprint. And same thing, like they have a global HQ that's in New York and a bunch of local chapters. Like
Mm-hmm.
Startup Grind is another example.
Yep.
There's quite a few of them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, basically the process was like I had to get in touch with HQ to kind of apply for it and then to have a few conversations with different people on their team.
Mm-hmm.
Just to kind of, chat about what my vision for it is in the city, what my first steps would be to launch it, what types of partners I'd be able to engage. Yeah, all of that fun stuff.
So like
Interesting.
how, so you got like the licensing. Talk to us about like launching your first event, because this is something new to you. You've never done it before. So how's that like setting up the first event, and what did you do to get the word out and get the team around you to really make it happen?
Yeah, really good question. So I've like before this, I had zero event planning experience. I've never done events, but I did come
Mm-hmm.
from a marketing, business, and PR background. So
Interesting.
that was super helpful in terms of actually like marketing the event and like a lot of things that went along with it. That background was super helpful. The first, like most important thing with any event is finding a venue for it. Well, this is obviously pre-COVID,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, finding a venue that's going to host it.
Mm-hmm.
So at first, my vision for it wasn't that big. Like for the first event, I thought I would just kind of keep it really intimate. I was going to work with just an agency that had a small office where like 20 to 30 people could attend. So I was kind of moving ahead with planning that. And then just something kind of clicked in me where I thought, this is really different. I think people are going to crave this and that's really going to resonate. So I think I should find something bigger and also just like with a more well-known kind of reputable name. So I ended up approaching DMZ, which is an accelerator here in Toronto.
Yes,
They
indeed.
were,
We're both from Ryerson, so we
From
know.
Ryerson, yeah. I was part of
in
like one of
case
the first
somebody's
sessions. So
listening who's not in Toronto, you never know.
yeah.
Yes, most definitely. For the audience, that's Digital Media Zone, a part of
Best
Ryerson.
incubator in the
They're
world.
amazing.
One of the best incubators in
Our
the
very
world.
first partner. They're so great. But yeah, so we ended up hosting the first event in that space. So I went from, thinking that this was going to be an event with like 20 people, just like maybe like my parents and some close friends, to now having to sell out an event, a space that holds over 100. So that was the first thing. Finding speakers was definitely a challenge because it was such a new concept, like asking people to go up on stage and share their biggest fuck up in front of 100 people. That's a
Yeah.
pretty new concept.
Especially here in Toronto, because there's a
Yeah.
superior work culture here of this work and go home, work and go home, maybe party, work and go home, work and go home, maybe party, So to sell that here, I think is a lot more challenging than people might assume.
Yeah, it was kind of, and it was just like a lot of it just seemed kind of taboo. Like the name was like edgy, not what people are used to. The whole concept of sharing failure, people were very conservative about it, I would say like 3 years ago. And that's definitely changing. So yeah, just like convincing people to actually speak at this thing and finding people who have really good stories, who were going to be vulnerable and have good lessons that they could share. That was a challenge. And then, yeah, like getting the word out about the event. Kind of the name is definitely a double-edged sword. It draws attention, like it captures people's attention, but you can't do any sponsored posts or any advertising because it just gets blocked. Because of the profanity in the name. So I couldn't rely on that. It was all organic through PR, through marketing, and truly like I really hustled for like a month to actually sell that event. Any event where I could go, where I could pitch it. Like TechTO has an opportunity to make an announcement. I did that. I was like terrified of public speaking at that point, but I did it. Creative Mornings, they also had an opportunity to make an announcement. I found like any related Facebook group that had like entrepreneurs in it, young professionals. I'd post in there. I'd message people individually. Like I truly hustled and, looked for PR opportunities, looked for different marketing opportunities.
So let's break that down. You said for free, basically, you can make an announcement on their platform?
No, at their event.
At their event.
So at TechTO,
okay, break it down.
at their, when they had in-person events, there's always an opportunity at the beginning to make like a 15-second pitch. Literally anybody in the audience can put up their hand and the host comes up to you with the microphone and you have 15 seconds to go up and say whatever you want.
Nice. Interesting.
Yeah.
So for the audience members, if you're thinking about marketing your event, you can look at other platforms, other events that have space before the event for that 15-second pitch where you can speak to a large audience to get people to come to your event.
Exactly. Yeah, there was like 700 people there. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Very interesting.
So,
Smart tactic, smart tactic.
yeah, very, very smart. So like you launched the event. How's the event? Like how's that whole rapid movement, people coming in, and actually seeing that like for yourself, like seeing people like enjoying the event. Like how is that?
Hold on. Before you get there. All right. Sorry
Okay,
to
what's up,
cut
Al?
in. And for the venue, you said you had a small budget, right? So what were the things you did to make the most out of the small budget when you're booking the event?
So, offering things like refreshments. So we had beer at the event, we had pizza at the event. So that's where, some of that budget went. T-shirts for the volunteers, all the little things. It was really like very tiny. Like it was really just from like selling those $10 tickets.
Nice. Oh, so basically you did like a pre-sale for the event and got the $10 from everybody. And then with the money, you then went and bought the t-shirts, the refreshments, and all the necessities for the event. So you could then have everything go. So the budget was actually you got the money
So a
before.
lot of the stuff I kind of like I prepaid, like I invested in like paying for a license to be able to run this type of event, to pay for that, and then also any expenses that I've had, and then I was able to kind of pay myself back through the ticket sales.
Okay.
Nice.
Interesting. This so like the audience members can get some like
Some
insight.
nuance.
Yeah, it's a nuance on it
Yeah.
because there's a lot that goes
In
unknown.
events, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Because a lot of
So-
people look at events and they think it's just like get people to come, but there's so many like things that
There's
like
a lot of moving
there's
pieces.
a lot of things
for
that
sure.
go into it. Yeah.
A lot of moving pieces. Okay. So for the license, was it an expensive license? So is there a lot of barrier to entry to get into something like that?
So at the beginning, when I joined, Fuckup Nights was still fairly new, and they were just kind of trying to grow their footprint across as many cities. So the license was super affordable. Over time, it has gone up in price, just to kind of sustain their operations at the HQ level.
Makes sense.
Absolutely.
The demand grows, so does the price.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay, cool. So now I think we have like a good base.
We have a good base to go. Someone can actually, okay, that's how she did it. So you get all these things in place, Marsha. So what's next? How do you get volunteers? How do you pay these volunteers? Because it can't just be like a one-woman show. You need like a squad behind you. So how is that like getting people to help you and actually executing the event?
Yeah, so the first event, I did all the heavy lifting in terms of planning, marketing, all the stuff that kind of went into it, like pre-event. And then for the volunteers, for the night of the event, it was actually a lot of my close friends or colleagues that I've worked with in the past. I did post about it in an entrepreneurial group on Facebook, and one of my volunteers came from there. And he joined the team since day one, and he's still part of the team.
That's awesome.
So he's stuck with it, and he's really contributed in so many cool ways.
Shout him out.
Patrick. Hey, Patrick.
Shout out Patrick. Loyal to the soil.
Exactly.
Yeah, actually, and then a couple of my really close friends, they've stuck around with it too since that first event. They're still part of the team, and they've taken on different roles with it and really helped to grow it and to really build our community. And then from that first event, a lot of our volunteers started coming from people in the audience, people that would come out to the event, who would attend it, and who just really resonated with it and wanted to help us grow it.
I haven't gotten a chance to go to it, but firstly, I really do want to go. And I imagine it being a very therapeutic experience, because in the work world, there's a LinkedIn type of mentality of, I need to be a walking LinkedIn profile. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And being super professional and not having anybody know my mistakes. I can't hide these because if anybody knows, I could possibly get fired and have my career ruined, right? So I imagine there's a strong therapeutic experience. Is that right? Making that assumption?
A lot of people say that. They feel like, you know, it was like, just like when I went to it for the first time, it was so different for me. I've never seen people share stories of failure before, and it was very refreshing. A lot of people kind of approached me afterwards, and they're like, you know, I really needed to hear what that speaker said. It really, you know, resonated with what I'm going through. It made me kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel of the struggle that I'm going through. And then for a lot of speakers as well, I think especially for speakers, because a lot of them are like sharing that story for the first time. They look super successful and polished on the outside. And, you know, like we've had really like well-known, amazing entrepreneurs share their stories. And it was honestly the first time that they shared their fuck ups. And it's a very cathartic experience because it's, you know, they feel like they were almost kind of able to let it go and just know that it was like for such a good cause, and they helped the community of people learn from their mistakes so that, you know, on their own journey, they could at least avoid some of those mistakes.
Awesome.
Marsha, do you feel as if people in Toronto are more conservative with sharing their failures? Because in other communities, like in Silicon Valley, they're very open with just the fail fast mentality. If you can contrast like communities in like Israel, San Francisco, and Toronto, is that right in making that assumption as well? Like Toronto has a more conservative, like,
yeah, definitely. I think, you know, especially in Silicon Valley, like that's like a hub for startups and for tech, and you know, to really like for something like that to grow, there's a lot of risk and there's a lot of innovation, and with that obviously there comes a lot of failure. They've just been at it for much longer than us here, so I think that kind of culture is developed over time. There it's kind of like celebrated in a way where, you know, you've had a failure but you were able to move on from it. A lot of investors even, they want to see that you've had another startup or something under your belt where, you know, you're not fucking up with their money.
You're not a rookie.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you've been able to learn from past experiences. So I think there it's just more normalized. Like it's a bigger community. It's been around for much longer, and something like that is just more ingrained. It's been really cool to see that kind of perception almost shift in the last 3 years in Toronto. And I really do believe that Fuckup Nights is a huge catalyst for it, because, you know, the brand has really grown, our community has grown, and I think it's gotten a lot of people to look at failure in a new light. It's impacted a lot of companies internally. You know, like some of them have introduced things like Fuck Up Fridays, where they kind of go around and all the employees kind of share their learnings from the week. Like it's just becoming more and more normalized. But I think when I was starting it, like over 3 years ago now, it was a very conservative culture, because, you know, our tech ecosystem was really growing during that time. And just people weren't really exposed to it.
Most definitely. With the first event then, could you walk us through how that went? What fuck-ups that happened then? Like, I'd love to get some details.
Yeah, like I said, it was my first time throwing an event. So definitely a lot of fuck-ups there. I think one of the bigger ones was in terms of the volunteer team. I didn't really have roles for the volunteer team. I was like, you know, just come to the venue 6 p.m. or whatever it was, and we'll just like figure out what needs to get done. I was so focused on like marketing the event, making sure the speakers are ready to go, all of that stuff. So I think we didn't really leave ourselves enough time to actually like properly set up. Like it was very rushed. Our check-in process was kind of, I ended up like printing off everybody's names, where it would have just been so much easier to like use the mobile app from Eventbrite. And that was like a very quick lesson, and obviously something we implemented for the second event. But yeah, it just like wasn't structured with any roles, and people really had to just figure things out on the fly, and it made for a very hectic setup. But the good thing with that is that, you know, like as an event attendee, as an audience member, you don't really see it. Like you're more focused on kind of your own experience there and what the content of the event is. And as long as, you know, there's great beer and food and all of that stuff,
you don't really care.
Yeah, another like smaller fuck up, like something that we started implementing, I think second or third event, we only had like beer as the refreshment option, because that goes with the brand of Fuck Up Nights. Like it's very chill, and, you know, but then there were people who are gluten-free, and, you know, they come to an event where there's pizza and beer, and, you know, there's no option for them. So that was kind of a fuck up, like just didn't even think of that. And I'm sure there were a lot of like smaller ones as well, but overall, I think I'm so proud of how it went, and just like the impact that it made and how it resonated with people.
Most definitely. What are some of the roles that volunteers or this you'd have to like set out? Because you don't even think about that. When I think of throwing an event, I don't think of roles at all. I just think of market it, fill a room, you know?
Yeah. I became like hyper organized with it, I think starting with the second event. So having somebody who's sort of a lead volunteer who kind of knows what everybody else should be doing, who can really help direct people, especially any new volunteers that are joining. You need people at check-in, you need people at like any station that you have, like even if, you know, like say there's a food station, like not like actually serving the food, but just kind of supervising it. You need dedicated people for setup. You need somebody who's going to lead the tear down. All kinds of things, like somebody, especially for social media, that's a whole other thing. Like somebody should be running your Instagram live, somebody should be doing your Twitter. If you're doing live streaming anywhere, like you need a separate person for each of those things. So kind of thinking through all of it. And I'm sure there's definitely more that I'm missing, but really just making sure that every like single thing that's happening at the event is taken care of. Even covered, as little as like, if you have speakers, like you need somebody who's potentially like timing their talks. If you have a certain time limit, somebody for the Q&A to run around with the microphone, like that kind of stuff needs to be decided ahead of time. Because if it's not, then it gets really hectic.
Yeah, it's the little things that make the event run smooth. It's like the difference between good to great is like the little things that make it happen. Yeah.
Most definitely. Interesting. Go ahead, Owen.
Yeah. So like when you did that first event, how many people showed up to the event? Like, do you remember the count of the people that showed up? And
the capacity of that space is 100. So we sold a little bit over 100, just knowing that there's a drop off. But it actually sold out because last minute we were able to get a CBC interview, I think, on the radio. And actually, that was a funny fuck up. I totally forgot to mention that. So we got this great piece of PR. They interviewed one of the speakers. They promoted the series. And then they failed to mention that you have to register for this event. Like the host of the show was like, oh, it's tonight. Just show up at this time to the DMC. So there was like tons of people that came who like heard about it. And they're like, yeah, the host said to just show up. And it was already sold out and it was like past capacity. And we had to make a decision, like either like we just like let these people in, let them pay at the door, but then it's going to be overcrowded. And, you know, people that did register ahead of time, they're not going to have the best experience because in terms of like food and the beer and all the stuff that we had, number of chairs, like it was meant for that capacity of people. So it was really tough. Like we had to turn quite a few people away at the door. And, you know, the volunteers kind of tried to put together a wait list system to see how many people actually signed in, if like what it looked like in terms of like extra chairs and stuff. But there were like quite a few people that we had to turn away. But it was really cool to see that it sold out and it resonated that much because leading up to it, people really waited until the last minute to buy tickets. And I was getting kind of worried. But then just like a few days before it went so quickly.
That's amazing. That's like the best problem to have.
Yeah, I know. It was awesome.
It just shows you how people were eager to like have something like this happen in the city.
Yeah, most definitely. So any advice on getting press for an event?
Really good question. I think your event has to be something that's unique. It really, like, you have to have some kind of story angle there. It can't, if you're just like hosting, I don't know, an event about Facebook marketing or something like that, like that's not going to be super exciting
it's too basic
for press. But something like Fuckup Nights where, people are going to be sharing failure for the first time, like that definitely catches attention. So I think really just like trying to shape a story that's going to be interesting and that's going to resonate with either the listeners or the readers or whatever it is of the publication, and really like approaching it in a way where like, this is why your readers or your audience is going to be interested in this. Here are like the key things to know about it. Here's who's speaking, and really just like trying to shape a story around it, I think is what's going to set it apart.
Most definitely.
Nice.
Did you have a specific press kit that you were using that you had to send out to different publications or like a pitch deck or something like that? Or was it just strictly just messages?
Now I do. At the time, I had so much on my plate. I didn't really have anything that official. It was more just, doing pitches, just reaching out over email.
Just hustling.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be perfect. You have to just go for it.
Yeah, a lot of people struggle reaching out to press. It's like you're crafting the right message, and you spend time like drawing up so many drafts of a message that is going to reach out to that person. But what do you think really gets like someone who's like a writer or someone in the media's attention to really respond and actually write about you? It could be not like you've worked with the media a lot now, I'm sure. It could be outside of Fuckup Nights TO, but what are some key things that people listening, if they want to reach out to the media for their business, that they can implement in talking out to the press, maybe before reaching out to them and after reaching out to them?
Yeah. Okay. So one thing, like, people are not going to like this, but it's like the very blunt truth. The media does not care about you just existing.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to get press just for existing as a startup or as an event or whatever. You have to have something that's newsworthy and something that's going to set you apart and that's different and something that has a story. And, you know, if you don't, that's totally fine. It doesn't mean that your event or your startup doesn't have value. PR might not be the right avenue for you. But I think the way to capture a reporter's attention is really having something that's newsworthy, something that's very different. You know, with a startup, have you launched something new? Are you capturing a new market? You know, something like that, just something that's, you know, happening and something that's different. That's what's going to set you apart.
Solid.
Differentiating yourself from the masses.
Yeah, I remember trying to reach out to press early on when we launched Sneaker Deck, and you know, we were launching this thing. It's like, man, this guy loves sneakers. We were building a marketplace back then, and we only got like maybe 4 or 5 responses out of like the 50 emails we sent, and it was like a little bit of a humble pie, but you're not as cool as you think.
That's actually, I would see that as successful in terms of PR. Like, you're going to get a lot of no's, but like those like 4 or 5 that cared about it, I'm sure you got great stories out of it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You don't have to get 50. Yeah.
And Owen, how many people did you follow up with?
You know, the thing is, those are actually some great relationships I have till today. I remember I didn't reach out, but I think from one of the people that wrote about us, Tech Vibes, I think they still Tech Vibes reached out to us and they're like, hey,
they rebranded. They're called something else now, I think.
Yeah. And that writer actually left. And I just remember him reaching, hey, I just saw your commercial. I think it's amazing. Let me do a feature on you and your founders. You know, the funny thing is I used to like read Tech Vibes and I read about all these entrepreneurs, like, damn, like it'd be amazing being on Tech Vibes. And then I was actually just in school walking the hall and I get an email, Tech Vibes TO Sneaker Deck. I was like, what? And then
awesome.
I know, it's just crazy when you think about things like that over and over and it happens.
Yeah.
When you least expect it. Was just, it was a great time.
I will say with Fuckup Nights Toronto, it looked like we have a lot of PR now, but it took a lot of time. For that first event, there was that one radio piece. But other than that, it was crickets. And it really took a year to actually start getting, you know, like significant PR. And it was a lot of pitching throughout the year. Like, I pitched to Tech Vibes, I pitched to Beta Kit. No one cared about it until it was like a year. I think when people found it exciting was when we were having our 1-year anniversary event, and it was a much larger scale event. We had a concert that went along with it. We had 4 pretty prominent speakers. A couple of them were really well known in the tech world, which that was something that captured the attention of Beta Kit and Tech Vibes, because that was speaking to their audience. And there was a story there. It was, you know, like celebrating a year of failure in Toronto. Like, I had some interesting pitches for them, and I had some angles and I had ideas for the story. Before, it was, you know, they didn't care that we were having volume 5 of Fuckup Nights, you know, in September. Like, it's not exciting. It's not that interesting. So I think just kind of really like being honest with yourself and thinking like, do I actually have a story here? Is this newsworthy? And when it is, like, when you can answer to yourself that like, yeah, like this is something really different and it's worth covering and I have an idea for something to pitch, then you should go ahead with it. Otherwise, you're wasting your own time and you're wasting that reporter's time. And then if you actually do have something exciting to pitch down the line, you might have already created a bad impression with them from before.
Nice. So going back to like the first event, launching your second Fuckup Nights TO, what things did you do differently from the first one to the second one?
A lot of things. One was, so again, venue was the most important thing. Love DMZ, but we like clearly grew out of that space from that first event. So a really pivotal thing for Fuckup Nights was actually partnering with Shopify for the second event. So that was like a dream partnership for me, and to be able to host it in that space was really amazing. And we were able to grow into a bigger space there. So that was one thing. And then also just working really closely with the Shopify team to really, because I think like when I was organizing the first event, I didn't realize that I was building a community. I was so focused on just creating an event and executing it. I think that partnership with Shopify and, you know, like putting a team together and all the stuff, it really helped me see it in a different light and really try to really understand that it's bigger than just an event series. There's actually going to be a community of people here. So working with the community team at Shopify was very pivotal, like learning very quickly about community, working with them to actually find really awesome speakers from within their ecosystem. That was another huge thing. But I think building out a team was really key as well. And that was one of my fuck ups. Like I think organizing that entire first event pretty much by myself and then trying to scale a team afterwards. It took me a long time to actually, you know, like delegate properly, and yeah, all of that went with it. But I think that was a really pivotal moment when I did.
Delegating as an entrepreneur is always it's tough, you know, because it's your baby, you know. You take in so much time.
And you feel everybody else is gonna like mess up your vision if they take control of like certain tasks.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely tough. So would you suggest then getting a team before you launch your first event, or?
Yeah, I would say so. I think it would be super helpful if I had engaged some of those, you know, volunteers that were going to be there for the night of the event to actually help with certain things leading up to it. They would feel a lot more ownership of it, and they would feel like they're more part of it.
Most definitely. So I'm curious, what's the business model of Fuckup Nights to you?
Yeah, really good question. So I will say this, it's, you know, Fuckup Nights is not meant to be a business. My goal with it is not to, you know, make the maximum amount of profit. But of course we have to make it sustainable, and I have to be able to, you know, sustain the operations and to live off of it. So really there's two sort of streams of revenue. One is sponsorship, and then the other is ticket sales. And of course there's a lot of expenses that go along with running the event. So you could either see the ticket sales going towards that or the sponsorship. I guess it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But that's sort of that. Honestly, I've said no to a lot of potential sponsors because my goal with it at the end of the day is not profit. It's really building a community, changing the conversation around failure. And, you know, I don't want to partner with companies that I don't feel are the right fit and that are going to help the community. So I've definitely been really picky with that, and just really making sure that it's very aligned and they're actually going to drive value for my community and the people that are there. So it's a balance.
Are some companies like turned off by the name? Like maybe there's some companies you die to work with, but they're like, no, we don't really like the name and we don't want to be associated with vulgar names in a title.
Yeah, the name is definitely a double-edged sword. So it doesn't make sponsorship the easiest thing. And then also in terms of, you know, advertising it, sponsored posts, can't do any of that. But on the other side, it really attracts the people that are right for the community. So the community members, and then also the partners that we work with. I mean, Shopify was an absolutely dream to work with. DMZ was absolutely a dream. That one was they actually had some pushback because they are part of, you know, Ryerson. There was a bigger approval process to actually allow them to even host in the space, but it was approved, and, you know, it was so aligned with their whole mission. But there was definitely a period of time where they weren't sure if they were able to move forward with that. But I've really been able to work with my dream company. You know, we've partnered with Slack for a special event. Xero is our lead partner, which is a cloud-based accounting platform. And that's so well aligned with our community because so many of the fuck-ups that we hear at our events are because of some kind of accounting or cash flow issue that could have been easily avoided if people had just used our platform. So that's such an amazing fit. We worked with Lighthouse Labs, Project Spaces, like amazing companies. I think the companies that do get kind of turned off by it are, you know, like I've tried to get like a bigger bank on board, even working with like an innovation department in some of the bigger banks, and they love it. Like so many people from their team come out, they have integrated that culture within, but it's very tough to get something like that approved to actually become an official sponsor of it. So that's been tough, but for the most part, it's been amazing. And I've been able to really like draw very cool companies to it.
Most definitely. So now, do you find yourself more on defense when it comes to attracting sponsors, or are you still on offense, going for the kill every time?
Good question. I mean, like everything has kind of shifted overnight. Like we're recording this in COVID times.
Yeah.
So things have definitely changed. Now we've pivoted to doing virtual events that are totally free to the community. We're streaming on Facebook Live. So now sponsorships are more important than ever. But I really have to redesign how we even go after sponsors. It's a very different playing field when it's online, and it's something that's very new to me, but something that I'm really excited about. And I think it's a really cool new challenge.
Mm.
So what
It
are
is a
the
big
challenges? Yeah, what are the challenges have you faced now, like that we're in this period, doing to really still keep that same authentic TO vibe, like bringing community together?
I mean, it's not going to be the same thing. I think,
Yeah.
what's really cool about virtual events is that they're way more accessible. People that, maybe before like heard about Fuckup Nights, but they live outside the city. It's too far of a drive for them, or they don't work in the city. They could just never make it out in person. Now it's as easy as, sitting down on your couch with your laptop and you could tune in.
Yeah.
Doing the event for free and streaming it on Facebook Live, that also makes it a lot more accessible. Not that our tickets were overpriced or anything, but when it's just available in that kind of format, it makes it a lot more accessible to people. So there's that, but it's how do you show that engagement to sponsors? How do you engage companies to participate in it? It's a very new challenge.
Most definitely.
Solid.
And how do you keep them engaged past the event as well? Because before you could always talk to them on socials, but then you actually, I mean, I guess you could still go through socials and just keep the
We
engagement
still
online.
do.
Yeah.
I mean,
Still
so
staying
far
active.
the two Facebook Live events that we've done, people were very engaged in the comments, and we had an opportunity for Q&A, and people asked really great, thoughtful questions. But I'm definitely, it's really top of mind for me. Like, how do I create more of a sort of networking opportunity? Maybe it's opening up like a Zoom after the event where there's different breakout rooms, or Facebook is launching kind of a competitor to Zoom with different rooms and kind of creating a more
Messenger,
social
yeah.
setting. So maybe doing something like that, maybe experimenting with a totally different platform. I don't know. It's still very new, but it's it's exciting to be able to experiment with that.
What are you looking to do now after COVID is over? What are some new things you're looking to implement into Fuckup Nights TO once that you've had this time to really think things through? And what approach are you really going to bring differently to the actual event when it's time to launch the next one?
Yeah, it's so hard to say when we could even do the next one in person, or what that experience is going to look like. I think it's really going to change. Like, I think anybody who thinks that things are just going to go back to normal, they're very much mistaken. I think the world has already changed so much, and things are going to be very different. I think events are going to have to be more intimate, and I think there's going to be some kind of hybrid between an in-person experience, but then also being able to tune in somewhere online virtually. So I think there's, maybe the event now, like we were up to around 200 something people. We partnered with Shopify for their new space that they moved into. We grew with them a second time. I don't know when it's going to be okay to bring that number of people together again in a space. I could see it being a lot more intimate, but then also streaming somewhere online and giving people that are online the opportunity to still feel like they're there and to be able to engage with their questions and, participate in it in any way that they can. But we'll see. I guess time will tell. I guess you have to be very adaptive and just kind of go with the flow and see what the trends are.
Definitely.
So it's an interesting time. Go ahead, Owen.
Yeah. So I know one of the things that you're really passionate about is community, right? You're the host of the community podcast. When did this really begin, or is it just from doing the Fuckup Nights TO that you became so passionate about building community?
Yeah, so I think I'm really fascinated by how people actually become community builders in the first place. I don't think anybody sets out to become a community builder. Anybody who I know who's also a community builder, they kind of totally stumbled into it and found it to be their passion as well.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to know a lot of other community builders over the time that I've been running Fuckup Nights. I'm part of a community for community builders, very meta. And I had the idea for this podcast, I would say, for over a year now. Was just really curious about launching it. And my vision for it was really to define what community truly means and to focus on the human side of it. Because I think community has become such a buzzword. Everybody's using the word community. I've heard people refer to their email list as a community. I've heard people refer to their Instagram following as a community. And I don't think it is at the end of the day. I think a community is, you know, a group of people coming together under some kind of, you know, like shared value or shared interest, and, you know, really like creating a place where people can belong, whether it's online or in person. It could be big, it could be small, but I think it has to be like truly like connecting with humans and bringing them together. So yeah, I really wanted to start talking about community from that perspective, and to really interview people that are amazing community builders, to get to know their journeys of how they actually became a community builder in the first place, and then what inspired them to start their own community and how they launched it, how they grew it, and, you know, their vision for how they want to take it forward. And then also chatting about their personal community as well. You know, what do their like close friends look like? How do they pick those people in their life? What communities are they part of? I think all of that is really fascinating.
I'm curious. So you said an Instagram account could not be is not a community. I just want to get clarity on what you said in the beginning of that statement.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's people kind of defining like an email list as a community, or an Instagram where they're just posting as a community. I think those things are more of like a content platform where you have an audience and you're sharing content with them, which is amazing and really cool, but it's not fostering a community. I think a community is like a two-way dialogue and, you know, like really bringing people together under a shared purpose.
A lot of people are impatient when building a community out, right? Some people might want to build a gym community and they see someone start a community. It's like, you know what, that would be cool to have one. How do you advise people to go? Is there a strategic way of building a community, do you think? Or is it just you let it happen organically?
I think the first thing with starting a community is to just start, like take that first step, look for it. Does it exist already? Because if it exists, then maybe there's no need to start it. You can be part of the community that exists and really contribute to it in a meaningful way. But then if you don't find what you're looking for, then that's a great opportunity to start it yourself. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be something as small as, you know, you want to start a book club, you know, discussing autobiography books, for example, with a group of like 6 people or whatever. Or it could be something really big. It could be, you know, a new type of event series where you're fostering a new community that has a special interest. It could really, like, it could be any size, it could be any interest, it could be anything that people are interested about. Like, there's countless communities that you can start. But I think the first step is really like just starting and just looking for it and seeing where there is a niche for you to kind of start it. And I think it has to come from something that you're really passionate about. I don't think it's going to be successful if it's, you know, something that you're just trying to do to like build a business or start for the sake of it. I think the most successful communities are the ones that are started because you have some kind of itch that's like not being scratched by something else that's out there.
Most definitely. With your podcast, is there a thread that you see continuously throughout guest to guest when it comes to building community?
I think a really common thing that I've seen is just like going back to my last point, where a lot of them started it out of their own need. Like they were really searching for something where like they didn't feel like they belonged, and they were looking for a community where they could belong, and they weren't finding it. So they decided that they were just going to start it. That has been a very key theme.
Okay.
Solid. What are some crazy communities that you've had, or people that you've had that have like this is like a cat book club, you know, one of those like things you would not think about. What are some type of communities that you've had hosted on your podcast?
One really cool one that jumps to mind, I guess like something that's pretty different. It's called Women Who Weed. It's a woman named Reagan Bradley that runs it. And it totally came out of her own needs. So she, you know, she's a professional. She worked in advertising. She worked in government, very like career focused, but she's had a relationship with cannabis for a while, you know, before it was legal, and then when it was legalized, it was just something that she, you know, really enjoyed and connected with friends around it. And for her, it was sort of almost like wine. Like it was, you know, they had great conversations, and they didn't fit the stereotype of what people would think when, you know, you think of like a stoner, or especially a woman who's into cannabis. So she was literally looking for a community of professional women who are cannabis users, and she was just not finding it. Like that community didn't exist. She went on Reddit. She thought maybe she just wasn't looking for it in the right places. So she went onto Reddit, and what she found was actually really negative messages, you know, like men being like, oh, I like the girl, but then I found out that she smokes weed, and I think that's disgusting, or, you know, like things like that. And she was like, no, like this is not what it is, and I'm going to create something. So she created this thing called Women Who Weed. She started it sort of as like a book club, and it has really grown and exploded, and she has a really cool vision for it. So I definitely check that out. So yeah, that's sort of what I meant by, you know, when you're not finding something that's going to like scratch your itch, like community where you feel like you can belong, that's an opportunity to start it.
What do you feel like is the appropriate amount of people to consider yourself a community? You know, because you can say, yeah, we have a community, but to you, you know, you're the community podcast, you know, what is like, what number do you cross where you can actually say, okay, we're actually a community?
I mean, that's a tough question, because I think like it doesn't have to be big to be considered a community. Like, I don't know, I think anything over like just yourself, like just a few people, because like think about like if it's like a group with like a shared interest, I think like even 2 or 3 people, you can consider yourself a community.
Okay.
Solid.
Well, one question for us, you know, we're trying to build a community. Is there any advice that you give us?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like something that kind of jumps to mind for you guys, you've built an amazing following, you've built an amazing audience that's like so into your content, and that really resonate with your message of really hustling and building something. I think a way to kind of make it more of a community is really like engaging people in a 2-way dialogue. So maybe like something that like just off the top of my head, like maybe creating like a mastermind group where, you know, you're breaking out into smaller groups and you're kind of hustling together, and you're bringing like resources to those people, but then also like a community of people where they can connect, not just like back and forth with you, but also with each other, and really like have a dialogue and feel like, you know, they have something in common and they have a place to go.
Okay. That's something we, Alex and I talk about. Yeah, we talk about really, I think our shared vision is really helping entrepreneurs and helping people who have, because when we classify entrepreneurship, we can say, yeah, people want to look at Mark Zuckerberg or like a Jack Dorsey or these titans of the industry. But some people just really want to have a side hustle business to really work on after work. And they want to just feel as if like they have the right group of people to work with and shared interests. Like, how do you manage a 9-to-5 and build a business, and what kind of resources can we provide those individuals to really flourish in that side business they have to really work towards?
Honestly, like it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It could be as simple as like I'm seeing co-working spaces, for example, right now they have to pivot during this time because, you know, people can't come in and work from their co-working space. I've seen some of them go online and create sort of like a virtual co-working space where literally everybody's just in a Zoom room and you have it off to the side, but it keeps you more accountable because there's like a group of people that you're kind of like working with that are there and that can kind of see you if you get distracted. So you can even create something like that where it's just like a group of people hustling together, where it's after their 9-to-5, like maybe you create it from like 7 to 8 p.m. we're together. And then at the beginning, like you guys address them. And then maybe there's a time for everybody to kind of introduce themselves, chat about what they're working on, maybe chat about some of their challenges. And then you have that time set aside where it's like, I don't know, you just like mute it and you're all working together. I know that it might sound silly, but I've seen some co-working spaces and like places do that. And it seems to be like people are into it. And it's just another way to kind of not feel like you're alone.
Yeah, that's true.
That's interesting.
So many things we can implement.
Most definitely. Hustle Nation, what do you think of that idea? DM us or comment in the comments below and let us know what you think.
Absolutely. So
moving on though, working towards wrapping up. Is there anything we haven't covered, by the way?
I think like we're covering everything that we have. One thing we wanted to know is with Fuckup Nights TO, how many events do you do a year here in Toronto? Like what's the duration from one event to the next? How much time do you take off to really launch it? How does that work? We didn't really ask that because people don't know if it's one time a year, if it's quarterly. How does it work?
So it's a lot more frequent than that. It's at least once a month. And there's some months where we have 2 or 3 if we're exploring a special theme. So with our regular monthly events, they're not really themed. Like the whole premise is sharing stories of failure. So we have 3 speakers from different walks of life, different types of entrepreneurs or professionals sharing their fuck ups. But something that we've experimented with is doing industry specific events. So we've done 2 advertising themed events where like all the speakers were chief creative officers at agencies. We've done a blockchain themed event. We've done a retail themed event. Cannabis most recently, that was one of our first virtual events. So yeah, it's at least once a month, but there's some months where we have 2 or 3 sometimes.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was gonna to touch up on the events. There's a lot of people who are looking to launch events in the coming years and forever. You're someone who's done it, who's doing it at a professional level now. Where like should they start when they really wanna? If you just I have an idea, I want to do this event. Where do I start? What do you do? Like some pointers that they can start off, like they're absolutely crucial for them to be successful with launching an event.
Yeah, really good question. I'd say step 1, like do your research, see if there's actually a need for it. Like, are you filling a niche that, like you're going to do something different that's not already being done? I think a lot of people kind of skip that step and, they're trying to recreate something that already exists. If you see that it exists, why not try to partner with what's already happening and kind of contribute meaningfully in that way? But if you do find a niche and, it's going to be something different and it's going to bring value, I would say like the biggest thing is to build a team. Don't try to do it by yourself. Like that was literally like my biggest fuck up. You need to surround yourself with people that are gonna like believe in that vision of the event that you're trying to bring to life, but then also kind of complement your skill set with their own. Like you just need people from different like sets of experience that are gonna help you bring it to life. And then literally just like you have to just start. You have to, I think like with an in-person event, setting the date and picking the venue are 2 very key things, because once those 2 things are in place, then it's like, okay, like it's happening, like it's like you have to execute on it. You kind of have no choice. So it kind of like kicks you into gear of like actually doing it and like figuring out all the other steps.
Most definitely. Advice. When people are approaching brands, what leverage points do they have to negotiate when it comes to a brand? And have you had to negotiate before? Like what, how does that process usually go?
It really goes back to just bringing value. Like you have to find alignment with the brand that you're trying to approach. Like you really have to be like speaking to their audience or, creating an opportunity for them to create with a community or to connect with a community that's going to be relevant to their brand. That's like the biggest thing, because if you're just like trying to get a sponsor but you haven't done your research and you're approaching companies that have like no relation to your community, you're not going to be super successful. But if you're finding a niche, like for example with Fuckup Nights, like the majority of our community are entrepreneurs and young professionals. So the companies that I partner with, they're either companies that are kind of in that realm. Like Shopify is all about entrepreneurship and encouraging people to take that step to start a business and supporting them through it. And there's a lot of fuck ups that happen along the way. So that was a natural fit. Zero Accounting, they're about also helping entrepreneurs, helping companies not fuck up their accounting and really like watch their cash flow. That was a natural fit. And then something like Lighthouse Labs, that was a great fit for the young professionals in our crowd who are trying to, upgrade their skills and really like not fuck up their professional career. So that's something, that's kind of a way that I approached it, like really finding a very close fit and just like also knowing that I'd be able to help them meet their goals. I would never just want to have a sponsor for the sake of having a sponsor. I actually want to be really confident that I'm helping them connect with our community, whether their goal is like brand awareness, if it's a newer company, or maybe talent acquisition to be able to recruit from within the community. Really just like helping them to connect and execute on that opportunity.
Got you.
That's good.
And when you approach a brand, I guess, how do you approach them to get those points out when it comes to what they want, and meeting that person that is the decision maker in the company? I feel like you probably have that process down pat now, right? So can you talk to us about that, or is it still on?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely gotten better at it over the years.
Yeah.
I think like a very key thing is trying to either get an introduction, like if there's somebody in your network that knows somebody that's actually a decision maker, or somebody that's like usually for sponsorships, it's going to be somebody on the marketing or community team. If you don't know somebody who could introduce you, then, reaching out on LinkedIn, really connecting with that person, and trying to set up some kind of either meeting or phone call before you sort of ask for anything, really to try to get to know what their goals are, and what they're trying to achieve over the next couple months, over the next year. And then from that conversation, being able to kind of tailor something to them, not just like sending over a general sponsorship package, but really kind of tailoring it towards their goals and really understanding what's going to help them.
Interesting. So I guess what you call it like a discovery call type of thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a big gem. A lot of people will just DM and go straight for the ask every single time.
Yeah.
Starting with the discovery call. Yeah, asking for a discovery call. I've learned that the hard way, is a great way to just have a more smoother approach to getting a brand deal and figuring out what they want. And then having that mutual agreement of, all right, you want X and I want Y, let's meet together.
And also just being patient with the process. I think a lot of people just want to DM and just, okay, I already asked them, let's wait for the response. But there's also like nurturing process to really get to the answer.
You with I think like any partner that I work with, like it was a long process. It's not like somebody who like overnight was like, yeah, I'll like write you a check. Like you have to really you have to explain what the event is, invite them to come experience the event. Maybe they need a couple months to come out and see it, to like truly experience it. And just like continuous follow up, but obviously like spacing it out and not kind of pestering them. There's really kind of like a balance to it.
It's a lot of patience with it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
That's a big jam.
So
awesome.
So now with you've been doing the event, like where do you see the future of Fuckup Nights TO? Like when you look now and moving forward, how big do you see it getting? Are there some other communities here in Ontario that haven't had it that you want to move towards? Where do you see Fuckup Nights here in like the province moving towards?
Yeah, really good question. So Fuckup Nights Toronto actually inspired a lot of new chapters of Fuckup Nights to start all across Canada. Like Calgary, for example, was a chapter that was inspired by ours. Hamilton, Vancouver existed before Toronto, but it ended up dying off and now was restarted. So it has a really good presence across Canada. For me, I really want to focus on Fuckup Nights Toronto. So we didn't even talk about this, but I actually launched Fuckup Nights Kitchener-Waterloo as well. And I ran that one. I ran that chapter for a year. And then I recently handed it over to the local team that I built there. There was, just somebody who was better positioned to run it. Somebody who was truly immersed in the ecosystem there and, lives in KW, lives and breathes it, knows all the companies there, all the entrepreneurs. So it just made sense. And it was really the right timing for me to hand that over and to really be able to focus on Fuckup Nights. It's kind of hard for me to say, I'm really in the middle of this pivot with COVID. I know that leading up to all of this happening, it was really positioned for growth. We had just in November moved into Shopify's new space, into their new venue. The event grew, it fits more people. We had, amazing speakers set for, for the next several months. There was a lot of opportunities for partners that were interested sort of in the events. And then some of those companies have unfortunately gone through their own struggles and layoffs and stuff of all that nature, just dealing with the crazy times that are happening. So in some ways, it's like it's definitely slowed down, and it's like it's not, you know, what I thought it was going to be. But now there's a new opportunity to explore virtual events, and when we do go back to being able to kind of bring people together in person, I'm very curious to see how that grows and what that experience is going to look like. But it's tough. It's like things are sort of evolving, and we're experimenting with things very quickly now. So it's hard for me to predict what it's going to look like in the next year. Whereas before, I could have given you a very concrete answer because I had a vision for it.
For sure. Where can they find the community podcast?
Yeah, for sure. So for my personal channels, I'm Marsha Druker across all of them. Just search for me. You'll find me. Would love to connect with you. And then for Fuckup Nights, it's Fuckup Nights TO, fuckupnightsto.ca. And then for the podcast, it's called Create Community. On Instagram, it's Create Community Pod. And then the website is createcommunitypod.com. And then any platform that you listen on, just search Create Community and you'll find it.
Solid. Yeah, Marsha, thank you so much for doing this. It was a pleasure connecting with you over the past couple of weeks and actually booking a time to actually talk to us and sharing your journey with us of launching Fuckup Nights Toronto and what you're looking to do for the city by galvanizing all entrepreneurs together to really be vulnerable and share their failures, and how we can all learn from them to really grow together as an entrepreneurial community here in the city.
Thank you. It was so much fun chatting with you guys.
Yeah.
Most definitely. Thank you.